Today, you're going to hear everything you need to know about electric vehicles, and just in case you thought they were still very primitive, can't run very fast, let me introduce you to some of the latest models. This is actually by XPENG. XPENG's P7, very sleek, correct? And what about this? NIO's ET7. So these are actually two very new models on the market, and they look awesome, correct? And they're actually made from China's manufacturers. Now, just in case you don't already know, these are actually some reports that's actually very available in the market. You actually see that electric vehicles right now, the cost of it is actually very close to a normal petrol vehicle already. The price has dropped, the gap has narrowed. According to Wright's Law, and this is actually research by ARC, Wright's Law forecasts that the growth of EV sales will increase 20-fold, all the way to 40 million units in 2025. That's going to be a huge number, correct? And we've actually seen some proof of it taking into effect already. This is actually numbers for 2020. You actually see that normal gas-powered cars have dropped in terms of volume, in terms of sales. But the electric vehicle volume has actually taken over, it's surged up, regardless of the pandemic. And as forecasted by ARC, they really do believe that the compounded annual growth rate for electric vehicles is going to be at 82% per annum. Fantastic, correct? Now, in today's video, we're going to hear a few parts. Firstly, why is the world moving towards electric vehicles? Secondly, why is China currently the biggest electric vehicle player? And thirdly, why is electric vehicle fastest growing space is actually coming from Europe? And last but not least, fourthly, I'll share with you insights from Singapore's point of view, why I'll be buying an electric vehicle sooner rather than later. If you're interested, continue watching on. Hi guys, welcome back. Now in today's video, you're going to hear about electric vehicles. That's what I promised to you. And let's start with the reason why electric vehicles is taking over the world. Now there are a few reasons, and the primary one is because of pollution. A lot of governments are imposing a deadline and they are ready to create fines and penalties to go carbon neutral. This is actually pushed in Europe. And that's why Europe, indeed, in chapter 3, which I'll share with you later, is the fastest growing EV market. Just in case you don't know some brands about electric vehicles, let me show you this pie chart that I found. Tesla actually sells 42 units per minute. The second player is probably BYD, and the third is actually BJEV. BMW, which is probably a popular name you know, is number 4. So let's look at some data, some charts as to the growth of electric vehicles around the world. And this chart really shows a good story. Back in 2015, total electric vehicle sales was only about 1 million. But right now, in 2019, you see that figure cross 7 million already. So this is really an exponential growth. So if you look back in time, 2018, what do you see the pie chart looking like? There were only a few adopters back then. That was only a couple of years back, do take note. The biggest consumer then was China. China consumed 45% of electric vehicles. United States, surprisingly, was number 2 at 22%. Norway and Japan each took a sizable 5%, and the rest of the world only had very fractional amounts in terms of the market share. But if you look at the latest figures in 2020, this chart shows you China indeed still maintains the lead, but Europe in total has really surged up close and is a second place right now. United States is third. So if you look in terms of pricing, this gives you a snapshot also. In US, the electric vehicle price is $55,000. This factors in possibly some local subsidies. And if you look in terms of Europe, you realize it's costing about $48,000. But in China, that price is about 30%, 40% cheaper. Total cost in China is about $30,000 only. That leads to the next part, which is why China is currently the biggest electric vehicle consumer in the world. Think about it. If you want to dominate car sales in future, should you compete in an existing segment, or should you create a new segment and compete and become a dominant force? That's actually how possibly China is thinking. They actually compete directly in the electric vehicle space, bypassing all the traditional players such as Volkswagen, BMW, etc., including Mercedes. So China's incentives has really spurred a lot of startup and innovation. I have a further chart to show you. This is actually the sales in China, and you'll realize that it's grown tremendously. They've started very early. 2013, they've seen sales already. Back then, I had no clue about electric vehicles. So I found this chart and I really learned something about how they think, how they plan forward. Now, if we look also in terms of the subsidies, there's news that reports that the subsidies were eased in 2021 because they've been heavily subsidizing electric vehicle adoption. But right now, the momentum is there. They are easing back in 2021. And the latest figures I have to share with you is they are dropping this subsidy by about 20% further. For electric vehicles that can travel, the range between 300 to 400 km, they'll drop the subsidies from 16,200 yuan to 13,000 yuan. For those that can travel much further, they'll drop it from 22,500 to 18,000. Now, I actually prepared all these charts for you and it actually took a lot of time. So if you benefited, smash a like so that more people can see valuable content like this. And again, inviting you to press on the subscribe, because in the subsequent weeks, I have sequel videos relating electric vehicles I'd like to share with you. I've actually looked in terms of NIO, I actually looked in terms of XPENG and BYD. And those data, once I finish crunching, I'll share them with you. So stay tuned and get notified. So let's move on to what it looks like in terms of the infrastructure, because electric vehicles require plugging in, correct? And China has actually planned ahead. They are very advanced in this space. You realize that there's the red zone, a blue zone, and a yellow zone. Who is in the red zone, the rapid, fast development zones? Those are tier 1 cities, correct? Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen. Blue zones, those you'll see, they are also fast catching up. Those are probably tier 2 cities. Indeed, China is ramping up mass infrastructure, and the growth is way faster than most people who are not staying there can imagine. I have further information to share with you in terms of the total volume, who is dominating in China. This is actually back in April 2019. Top player was actually BYD Yuan EV. Very nice, very sleek SUV, correct? I would own one myself. I think it looks very nice. Then if we fast forward to details, in 2019, the whole summary from January to August, you realize that BAIC now comes up on top. BAIC is actually from Beijing. There's also SAIC, that is actually from Shanghai. So there's a lot of big players funded by government also. BYD Yuan drops to number 2. So if we fast forward again to January to November 2020, you realize that, hey, out of nowhere, Tesla becomes number 1. Tesla has shown tremendous growth in China. It's possibly because it's a foreign brand, that's why there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of prestige about owning a Tesla. And they've actually shot to number 1. But take note of number 2, Wuling Hongguang Mini EV. Later I'll show you an image of it. Very interesting. So they've actually came out of nowhere and jumped to number 2 in the list. And of course, what I realized in this research, there's something I'd like to share with you, is when there's new models coming up, typically they replace incumbent models because there's some excitement about buying those new models. They probably throw a lot of incentives. So 2021 wouldn't be Tesla as number 1. I think that's almost a given. And indeed, in the first few months, Wuling Hongguang Mini EV has overtaken Tesla. And I've actually an image to show you. This is actually how it looks like. Pretty sad, correct? It's just a short distance EV, but the cost is a fraction of the Tesla Model 3. Tesla Model 3 is a sedan. It's meant to be a bit more luxurious, but Wuling Hongguang Mini EV is really transportation, purely functional. Fetch your dad, mom, fetch your baby, let's go kind of a thinking. So if you're interested to find out about Tesla, I've actually this chart to show you its sales. Take note also, 2020, the start to the mid, that's where we actually had COVID-19. COVID-19 created some suppression in terms of sales, but it actually picked up towards the end of the year. Now Tesla themselves, they have actually launched a second gigafactory in Shanghai. So Tesla fans definitely know about it. But Tesla right now, there's some latest news. In terms of quality, they're facing some complaints. In terms of their mapping, there's some concerns about security. So that's a separate story. But could that actually derail Tesla's growth in China? That remains to be seen, as that's something that I'd like to investigate for you if you stay on this channel. Now in this section, let's talk about the fast growing EV player, which is Europe. China is the number 1, but Europe is fast catching up. Probably in the future, they'll actually surpass China in terms of total EV sales. Now Europe-wise, why are they adopting it so fast? A key reason is because they want to limit carbon emission. And right now what I can show you is in Germany, buyers actually have discounts when it comes to purchasing electric vehicles. 9,000 euros. In France, they have incentives of 7,000 euros, which will trim down to 6,000. So each of these developed countries, these leading nations, they've already led the line and thrown in discounts. I have a further chart to show you. This is actually from Jato Europe sales breakdown. And what we realize also is gasoline vehicles have dropped in terms of their total sales. The pickup comes mainly from pure electric vehicles, BEV, also comes from hybrid electric vehicles, also comes from plug-in hybrid. Now there are a few variations, but we don't dive into technicalities. But what I can share with you is the big players like Volkswagen, who owns Audi, who owns Porsche, they actually have a lot of all these hybrid vehicles. And most of the luxury vehicles are actually now selling hybrid models, and they are very successful. Mercedes-Benz and BMW included also. Tesla used to be the biggest seller in Europe itself, but right now they've been overtaken by Volkswagen. You look around channels, you do realize that most of them mock competition from the incumbent players like Volkswagen, but actually Volkswagen seems to be doing very well with its hybrid models. Would it last? No one's absolutely sure, but as of now, what's reported is this chart over here. I've actually mapped this out personally for you to see. Volkswagen owns 24% of market share. The second is actually Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi Alliance. Tesla has been bumped up to number 3. So do take note of it if you are investing in Tesla. Hopefully they can actually recover market share, because right now they are being outsold by their competition. Now what is going on also in Chinese manufacturers, they're also looking to ship to Europe itself. They're following Tesla's lead. And XPENG, for example, has actually reached certain sales in Norway. They're also shipping another few hundred cars. So I believe most Chinese manufacturers, including NIO, will try to penetrate, and Norway always seems to be a very easy adopter, and from there they'll spread to the rest of Europe. This video has actually been very fun for myself and my team. We've learned a lot in electric vehicles and really try to uncover what's going to happen in terms of the electric vehicle space moving forward. Let's draw it to Singapore's context. Do you know that government wants to phase out petrol vehicles by 2040? Now this is a good plan. It's still 19 years in the making. We are possibly quite behind China and Europe and US already, so we are quite slow in terms of adoption, but at least there's a plan. So right now you'll see a lot of blue SG cars, and they're actually giving more and more stations, probably as a pilot test on how things can actually work out in future. There's a big plan to actually create 10,000 electric vehicle charging points island-wide by 2030. So this is a possible look of things. There's not much details. You try to look at articles to share with you. But as of now, HDB is thinking of it. The cost of usage is also not out yet, so we'll stay tuned for it, and once there's news, I'll share them with you. So in terms of cost, let's look at Tesla 3 to understand how actually the pricing will look like. What you can see over here is a few key parts. First, VES rebate. VES is actually in terms of the carbon emission, and there's actually a chart to show you. The lower the emission is, the more the rebate is. And for Tesla 3, it's speculated to deliver 25,000 in terms of VES rebates. There's also EV early adopter incentive. I didn't know about it. So with that actually changes the ball game, because there's a 20,000 incentive, and that will actually run all the way to January 2023. These 2 points really reduce the cost of owning a Tesla 3. And additionally, they'll be reducing the road tax for things, because it's projected right now the road tax at 2,526. That is pretty hefty. In comparison, I think I'm paying about 1,000 plus only for a 2-liter Mazda 6. So 2,500 is expensive. It will deter people from owning a Tesla 3. Government indeed will be looking to reduce this road tax. How much of a drop? Let's look at one example, which is the Hyundai Kona SUV. The current road tax is 1,447. The revised road tax is only 1,095. That means a drop about 30%. So 2,500 for Tesla's 3 road tax, it could drop to possibly only 1,500, 1,600 in terms of road tax. A lot more palatable on an ongoing basis. Tesla indeed is coming to Singapore and excited about it. So if we could all tap on that EV early adopter 20,000, that could really reduce the cost and make it very close to a traditional petrol car. So what are your thoughts? Leave them in the comment sections. I'll be keen to hear from you. For myself, I do think I'll be adopting an EV sooner rather than later. And I believe the biggest challenges for Tesla 3 is actually in hybrid vehicles. That is something similar to what we are experiencing in Europe right now. Hybrid vehicles are very popular, especially for those premium brands like Mercedes and BMW. So what are your thoughts? Will you be adopting an EV soon also? Leave your comments below. I'll be keen to hear from you. And I've actually a previous video that I introduced to you. This video actually shows how much I've been spending a month heading my household. Car cost is actually one component of that. If you're looking for a second thought on how much your family is spending right now, you want some benchmark, look for that video. Maybe can share a thing with you or two with you and help you in your financial journey. With that, I'll sign off. Take care and goodbye.